All right, let's jump right in. Today we're diving into this explainer to explore a fundamental shift in how businesses interact with our planet, and honestly, why this next wave of corporate responsibility completely changes the game. Look, for a long time, the corporate world has been operating under this set of assumptions about sustainability that are, quite frankly, rapidly becoming outdated. We are literally standing at the edge of a massive transition right now, moving away from these old defensive strategies and stepping into proactive, restorative ones.
Which brings us to a pretty massive question. Is doing less harm actually enough? For decades, we've been taught that recycling is the ultimate goal, right? Like if we just put our plastic in the correct blue bin, we're saving the world. But I want you to imagine you're on a sinking ship with a giant hole in the hull. Recycling in this scenario is basically like trying to bail out the ocean with a thimble. I mean, sure, you're definitely doing less harm than if you were doing nothing at all, and you might even buy yourself a few extra minutes. But the fundamental problem, that giant hole in the ship, remains completely unaddressed. You're just managing the decline. The system itself is failing, and simply doing less bad is just no longer a viable long-term survival strategy for institutions, investors, or our environment.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 5 key areas. First, beyond the recycling myth. Second, the evolution of ESG. Third, we'll enter Circularity 3.0. Then, defining regenerative value. And finally, the future of ESG.
Kicking things off with Section 1, Beyond the Recycling Myth, why just managing waste is completely failing us. Here's the thing. Doing less bad is a good start, but it fundamentally fails to fix the root of the problem. If an entire industry is literally designed to extract finite resources, turn them into single-use products, and then rely on you, the consumer, to recycle them, that whole overarching system is inherently broken. The recycling process itself often requires massive amounts of energy and, honestly, frequently results in downcycling. Turning materials into lower and lower quality items until they inevitably just end up in a landfill anyway. It's basically a bandage on a systemic wound. We really have to rethink the entire life cycle of value creation. Because if we're only focused on managing the waste at the very end of the pipeline, we are completely ignoring the incredibly flawed design at the beginning of it.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the evolution of ESG. We're talking about the journey from basic waste management to net zero. Let's go back to that sinking boat metaphor for a second. In the past, we had Circularity 1.0, that was waste management, furiously bailing water out of the boat. Then we evolved to our present phase, Circularity 2.0, which focuses on sustainability and hitting net zero. In our metaphor, this is finally plugging the hole so no new water comes in. And look, that's essential, but you're still sitting in a damaged, waterlogged boat. The future phase, the one we are actively transitioning into right this very second, is Circularity 3.0, regeneration. This is where you actually pump the water out, repair the damage, and upgrade the ship's engine so it runs even better than it did before you hit the iceberg. It's just a completely different level of ambition. And when we break this down, the progression is incredibly clear. In Circularity 1.0, the goal was simply less waste, and the strategy was recycling. Fast forward to 2.0, that goal upgraded to net zero, trying to neutralize our impact by doing less harm. But Circularity 3.0 demands a net positive goal. The strategy shifts entirely from a defensive posture to a highly offensive one, actively restoring. This right here is the blueprint for the next decade of corporate innovation. If a company is out there still pitching you on their 1.0 or 2.0 strategies as their absolute ultimate achievement, they are already falling behind the curve. So let's look closer at that future state. In Section 3, enter Circularity 3.0, the massive shift from sustainable to regenerative.
Seriously, just think about the word sustainable for a minute. If someone tells you that relationship is just sustainable, it usually means it can endure, like it hasn't completely collapsed yet. But is it thriving? Are you throwing them a parade? Definitely not. Do we really just want to sustain our current degraded environmental and social systems? No way! It is not enough to just maintain the status quo anymore. We have to actively improve, heal, and regenerate. We are moving past the myth of recycling and shifting our entire focus toward building true regenerative value.
This brings us to Section 4, defining regenerative value. It's all about doing more good, not just less bad. Understanding this definition is absolutely key to seeing why the older ESG models are becoming obsolete. Regenerative value is a business model paradigm focused on doing more good by actively restoring ecosystems rather than just pausing their destruction. It is a highly active pursuit. This means a company's operations actually leave the local water supply cleaner than they found it. It means agricultural supply chains actually rebuild topsoil and increase biodiversity, rather than just saying, hey, we avoided deforestation. It's a fundamental rewiring of how a business measures its own success. Success is no longer just profit without harm, it's profit generated through healing. We are literally leaving the era of depleting and jumping headfirst into the era of restoring. Think of it like your bank account. Sustainability, the status quo, is trying to get your spending exactly equal to your income so your balance just stays at zero. It's stressful, and one emergency puts you right back in the red. The regenerative model is about actually generating interest, so your wealth, in this case environmental and social wealth, actually grows over time. It shifts from net zero and doing less bad to net positive and doing more good. It's just a much more resilient and honestly inspiring framework for building the future.
So, how do we actually pull this off? Let's wrap up with Section 5, the future of ESG, moving from theory to action.
If you're a forward-thinking company, how do you actually implement a 3.0 strategy in the real world? Well, step 1, you abandon the recycling myth. You design products from the ground up to never become waste in the first place, using modular designs and biodegradable materials. Step 2, transition from net zero to net positive. You audit the entire supply chain to produce excess clean energy or capture more carbon than you emit. And step 3, implement active ecosystem restoration. Rewild habitats or clean up polluted waterways as a core, central part of your operations, not just some PR side project.
And as the market embraces this regenerative future, those old ESG compliance checkboxes, they're becoming completely obsolete. Smart capital is demanding more good over less bad. We're seeing a massive pivot toward actively restoring ecosystems. And most importantly for the financial world, this totally redefines corporate value for investors. Companies that are successfully shifting to Circularity 3.0 aren't just mitigating risk anymore. They are creating incredibly sticky, resilient, and long-term value that standard companies simply cannot match. Look, if we strip away all the corporate jargon, it really boils down to this incredible insight from our source material. The next wave of ESG is about regenerative value, not just recycling. The baseline expectation for corporate behavior has permanently shifted upwards, and the true leaders of tomorrow are the ones fully embracing this exact philosophy today. So, I want to leave you with a question, something to really chew on regarding the modern businesses you engage with every single day. Are the brands you support merely surviving, or are they actively regenerating? Look at your investments, look at the products sitting in your home right now, look at the companies you work for. Are they stuck in 1.0? Are they striving for 2.0? Or are they leading the charge into Circularity 3.0? It is a completely fascinating lens to view the world through. Thanks so much for hanging out and exploring this explainer with me today, and keep learning.